When organizations are going through transformations, they have to change. So one question I want to know is change management difficult, and how difficult is it, and what are the biggest causes of change management issues? So to find out, I'm going to ask a bunch of industry experts what their answer is. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach their third stage of digital transformation success. And when we're going through digital transformations, one of the biggest things we need to worry about is change management. We have to focus on the human component of change to really help them and enable and embrace those changes. So what I wanted to do today is jump into a conference that we're hosting. It's our annual Digital Stratosphere Conference. I'm going to jump into this conference and ask some of the industry experts that are there with me, some of the speakers and thought leaders and other attendees that have been through transformations. I want to ask them their views about change management and how difficult change is and what some of the reasons for difficulty are. So let's jump into this conference and talk to some of the experts to find out how difficult change is and why. Let's go. So Becky, is change difficult for your organization in particular?
It absolutely is. Yes, it's very difficult.
Why is that?
Well, we have a lot of tribal knowledge and a lot of people that have left the organization because of aging out in education. People have stayed there a long time, which has not been recorded. So we have all these silos, and we have not captured it the way that we probably should have to be more successful with this digital transformation.
So Marcus, do you think change is difficult for most organizations, or how difficult do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most difficult things that you're going to face in a digital transformation. And the reasons for that are many, but essentially you're pulling out the backbone of the company's computing system and putting in something new, and there's so much uncertainty associated with that people naturally are resistant to change. And I think with the cases that I litigate, they all have a common theme, and that really is the failure to properly manage the change associated with the digital transformation, and it can have devastating results.
Okay. Mehdi, one thing I wanted to ask you is, do you think change is difficult for most organizations, and why?
Yeah, the easy answer is yes. The why is very complex, but most common causes of that resistance to change comes from the comfort level that people feel in doing their daily work, and they don't want to change it because they're afraid of what the future can bring, and the new technologies, and whether they're going to lose their jobs, they lose their influence. All of that is a very complex dynamics that you have to look into, but overall change is difficult, and you have to again invest and go through a very disciplined change management program to make that happen without too much distraction to the business.
Right. Great answer. All right, so Kristen, you're about to become a YouTube star because you're being filmed right now on my YouTube channel. Dozens of people will see this video for sure.
Dozens.
Dozens.
All one of them.
You're right, and half of those are my mom. So, but in all seriousness, I have a question for you. What is change difficult for most organizations that go through a digital transformation, and why?
Change is difficult for everybody. No matter how much an organization says they want to change, the desire to stay the same is always greater. And what's beguiling is how many people will complain but really invest in staying the same. And so, yes, change is extraordinarily difficult. And what's also important to note is the saboteurs to change. And so one of the things, again, we talked about adoption being critical, effective learning tools, effective leaders that actually get out in front and foster that change, but they have to be of the people, if you will. Obviously, executive sponsorship and endorsement all the way down. But yeah, change is really, there's many days you might as well just say, we're out and let's not do this because it's that hard. So you have to be super, super committed to not only get the value out of your investment, but really push your company forward. And I do mean it, push it, like the wrong end of an elephant.
Right. So Dominic, do you think change is difficult for organizations?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most difficult things in my book because most people don't like change. Most managers don't want to tell people things are changing. So they say, you know, let's not tell anyone until the last minute and then it's too late to change, rather than bringing them on a journey. Because people are very well protected, people don't like change, and it's much harder to make those changes to any organisations now, especially with the sort of social constructs we've got, and depending on what region you're in, of course. But for instance, in France, you can't change people's roles very easily, and you can't sack someone, so change is pretty difficult.
Right.
Worldwide. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Very difficult. So.
All right. So Mitch, talked a lot about change management here today. Do you think change management is difficult for most organizations, and why?
I think so. I think it is really challenging, but I think that's because people don't know how to empower their people to change. And it can be scary to change, but if you empower your people in the right way and you take it step by step, I think it can be done, but it's always hard. It's worth doing if it's hard.
Right, exactly. So Amanda, do you think in general change is easy for most organizations? Is it harder than they think? What do you think?
I think it is harder than they think.
Why is that?
Harder than anyone thinks. I think just human beings, you know, people, that's how we're wired. Homeostasis is always comfortable. And a lot of times you come into companies where people have been doing the same thing for 15, 20 years and it works in current state, but it's probably not going to transfer over very well to future state with a, you know, modern ERP system or whatever they're looking to do. So it's a constant reassurance, I think, and helping people and not being condescending when they're resistant or they have questions or they have issues about, well, it works better like this and here's why. Because sometimes there's actually a good business case or there's logic there, and you really have to talk as a team again and revisit that, you know. But change is hard. I don't care who you are. Even if you're miserable in your current, you know, system and it's not working and you can't be competitive anymore, it's still familiar. And I think a lot of times we just want to stay with what's familiar. So it's hard, but I think if you go in with that expectation that change is going to be hard, you have to coach people up and encourage them instead of getting upset that they're resistant to change.
Right.
You know, because it's just the human condition, I think.
Right. So Jordy, do you think change is difficult for most organizations?
I think it's difficult at first, and then the more that you change or the more that you're open to change, the easier it gets. And the more that you talk about it and maybe talk about what scares you about change, that will enable you to be able to change effectively and efficiently.
Great. So Ro, how difficult do you think change is for your organization?
Got to be a culture shift, and they got to understand what technology can do to improve the overall organization. So it got to be a change in the mindset of the individual, because most organizations work in silos, and we got to get out of our silos.
So Emma, for organizations you work with and consult to, is change management difficult, or how difficult is it?
I think it's one of the hardest things that any business has to manage, and it's more because the people side of change is what is really sticky. Technology is more cut and dry, black and white, but when we get into dealing with people and personalities, there's a lot of ambiguity and finesse that has to come with it. And it's really difficult to get people energized enough to put forward the effort to change. And it has to be almost individualistic across your team, which can be really difficult.
Right, okay. So Carrie, change management is always a big deal, and organizations going through change with digital transformations. You have to ask, is change difficult for most organizations, and why?
Yeah, I would say change is going to be difficult. And it's important, all of the things that we're thinking about in terms of that vision that you set for your organization when you're making the investment to do that change in the first place, to communicate that out. Communication, I think, is the primary way to mitigate that concern that comes with the change management. So just want to make sure that you're being really clear and upfront, setting milestones and communicating with your teams as to why you're making that change, how it's going to affect them, and be transparent about it.
So now that you've heard from the experts, I want to hear from you. What do you think? What are your answers to these questions? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And for more information about digital transformation best practices, I encourage you to download our 2024 Digital Transformation Report. It's a report we publish each year. You can find that on our website by scanning the QR code or going to the links below. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day.
Weird get, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere else with it.
Is change difficult?
Do you get the same answers all day long anyway? Okay.
No.
No, you don't?
Or agree with anything that the industry,